7 News 19.
Facing a term limit barring him from re-election, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb will leave the statehouse at the end of 2024 after 8 years in office. I sat down with Governor Holcomb to look back on 2023, what may be his most impactful year, to discuss some of his biggest accomplishments and most controversial decisions. Governor, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for being here.
So as you're ending your time in office, what do you see as your signature accomplishment?
Well, I think we've taken the state to the next level in many different respects, certainly in terms of economic development.
It's no surprise the first thing Governor Eric Holcomb wants to promote is the record investment in the Hoosier State. Over the last 2 years, Indiana has attracted more than $50 billion of economic development, with $28.7 billion in 2023 alone, including the $3 billion EV battery cell plant coming to St. Joseph County. It's a 29% increase from the previous record set in 2022.
We're now punching way above our weight class in terms of state competition.
Governor Holcomb says the state is primed for more major announcements over the next few months. And much of the money from these investments, Holcomb says, is being dedicated to improving health care, which in 2023 saw the total $7 million state health spending jump to $225 million over the next 2 years. St. Joseph County alone will receive as much as $8.4 million if the county opts in for funding in 2025.
But when you stop and think about it, we'll be investing more in a county as we did the whole state.
According to the Indiana University School of Medicine, the state has an infant mortality rate 20% higher than the national average and currently has the third highest maternal mortality rate. Despite the new health funding, critics believe the near-total abortion ban Governor Holcomb signed into law, which is being contested in court, will only hurt the Hoosier State's struggling health rankings. It prohibits abortion care except in limited cases of rape, incest, or when there's a fatal fetal anomaly. And in Texas, just very recently, there was a woman who was going through fertility treatments. She wanted a child, then learned that she had a diagnosis for a neural tube defect that can cause brain tissue to protrude through the skull, denied an abortion. Tennessee had to add an amendment this year for ectopic pregnancies because a patient was refused an abortion for that. Should the legislature clarify the exemptions?
This will be challenged through the courts, rightly so. And as personal and painful as those may be for those individuals, they will have long-lasting, obvious effects on the citizens of each of those different states where this is now being decided. And so I think in Indiana, the same can be said.
Should it be decided in the court? Because it's going to take individual cases where there are challenges before that can even happen.
Well, the courts can inform the legislature, but yes, we have a judiciary for a reason. There is a process, and it bubbles up from the people through their representatives, and then when challenged, not all those cases go the way that they're challenged.
Some abortion advocates say that the exemptions are really in name only, that they're not going to be legitimate. Do you feel that way?
I would take each case by case and make a decision on it. And we have a case currently going through the system. Here in Indiana, you mentioned Tennessee and Texas and other states have taken up legislation around us as well. Again, it's a state-by-state, case-by-case basis, and we'll let the process play out.
To address infant and maternal mortality rates, Governor Holcomb said part of his job this year is educating Hoosiers on health programs for new and expecting mothers, as well as existing programs to help prevent unwanted pregnancies. Now, tomorrow on Night Team, the second part of my interview with Governor Eric Holcomb, where we talk about the legislation directly regulating health care for members of the LGBTQ community and how he plans to end his time in office before a successor takes over. Hoosier lawmakers introduced 24 bills in 2023 targeting LGBTQ youth, teens, and adults. The ACLU of Indiana called it the slate of hate. Among the legislation that Governor Holcomb signed into law, a ban on gender-affirming care for minors and a ban on gender-affirming surgery in prisons. When we reached this topic, Governor Holcomb didn't back down when asked whether the government should be making health care decisions for families.
Yes, these policy decisions are ultimately, when they impact the state's citizenry, made in the people's house. And we elect representatives to reflect those, not just opinions, but in some cases, convictions. And that's the beauty of our process, is having elections right after. They seem perpetual, but they're right after a lot of these big decisions are being made and votes are cast.
But we're talking about a minority of a minority, to where, you know, we've heard about the silent majority. Is there a silenced minority in Indiana?
I think both. I mean, just stepping back outside of the issue, different sides would lay claim to that. They would say the minority is making rules for the majority, and that shoe can be on either foot. But ultimately, it's the state house, the people's representatives, that make policy that affects them.
According to the Association of American Medical Colleges, gender-affirming care can range from counseling to changes in social expression to medications like hormone therapy, while actual surgery is rare for people under the age of 18. It's overwhelmingly supported by the mainstream medical community, including the American Medical Association, the Endocrine Society, and American Academy of Pediatrics, as a relatively safe, effective, and medically established standard of care, pointing to research-proven reductions in anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts among transgender youth. The American Medical Association has criticized bans to gender-affirming care, saying laws like Indiana's represents a dangerous governmental intrusion into the practice of medicine and will be detrimental to the health of transgender children. For families, I mean, the call is being taken out of their hands.
For the minor, yeah. For adults, which we have all kinds of laws that apply to minors and adults that are different from one another. And in this example, the legislature and I signed into law, wait till you're an adult before you make a permanent decision like that. All sides were heard, votes were cast, law was made, and now if you want to take a different approach, come back again this session.
In a state that's, you know, party rule down the line in the three branches, I mean, is there really an opportunity for debate, or is it more of just what one side believes? Again,
For a state of citizens that vote for those people to cast a vote and then to have been reelected, I think that speaks for itself.
The ACLU of Indiana filed a lawsuit last year which stopped the ban on puberty blockers and hormones for transgender minors while the case goes through court, though restrictions on gender-affirming surgery have gone into effect. Now, with a shortened legislative session this year, Indiana Republicans have not signaled any new legislation in 2024 that would target the pride community. You talked about a lot of the economic investment going in. What is it going to take for Indiana to continue to grow after you're out of office?
I hope we continue to invest in local communities in creative ways, developing partnerships with locals and regions.
Unfinished business?
Well, next year will be a year of land and launch. That means finish what we've started.
Specifically, major road improvements to US 30 and 31, expansion to broadband access, and natural trails. Investments that improve Hoosiers' quality of life and attract future Hoosiers to Indiana.
Now, because citizens on the ground say this is working, this brings in not just educational but also economic development, we need to do more of that. So we'll be leaning in very aggressively
Governor Holcomb, thank you for doing this.
Yep, great to be with you.
Governor Holcomb says he has not decided what's next in his career or whether he'll even stay in politics. Holcomb says, you do the job you got, the rest will figure itself out. The Indiana legislative session starts Monday. In studio, Tim Spears. Back to you, Jennifer.